Morning. Chris, thank you very much for your leadership and for convening such an incredible group on a very important topic. Well, everyone is talking about AI, and we usually think of it at the consumer level, either Grok, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, software developers, apps. But as you've heard already today, Ohio's got this amazing, incredible opportunity because we make things. We make things, we build things, and Ohio's got the opportunity to use the great innovation and capability that AI provides to develop the next generation of industrial goods, capital equipment that shape the world, whether it's software, robotics, drones, manufacturing, or the things that power them, the energy industry. So my name is JP Nauseef. I'm the president and CEO of JobsOhio. I'm very happy to be the moderator of today's panel. We'll do some brief introductions, then we'll dive right in. Let's start with Zach.
Morning, everybody, and likewise, we'll echo the thanks for Chris for convening an amazing event, a collection of companies, executives, not just across Ohio, but clearly crossing state boundaries, learning more about the opportunities that exist to build and grow your company here. Zach Mears, Ohio native, Springfield, Ohio, graduate of The Ohio State University, and an executive at Anduril leading strategy and corporate development.
Beth?
So I am Beth Flippo. I am the CEO of Dexa, and I'm actually not from Ohio. I am a transplant from New York City. Moved out here with my whole family, my 10-year-old daughter who came today, 6 years ago to work with our first customer, which was Kroger. We do drone package delivery, and they picked a location in Centerville near Dayton to fly from, and we placed the whole company in Dayton, Ohio, and we haven't looked back. So I actually have a unique view on Ohio and how truly great it is.
And just a note, we love Cincinnati, but Dayton is not part of Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's true.
But we love Cincinnati. It's great. Andrew.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Andrew Lonsberry, co-founder and CEO of Path Robotics, also an Ohio native. I was kind of born and raised in the Cleveland area, grew up in Hudson, Ohio, did undergrad at The Ohio State, and then did master's and PhD at Case Western. So been here for my entire life, don't plan on leaving. Happy to talk more about that today, and excited to be here.
So incredible panelists with very relevant cross-sector experience. So we're excited to hear from them today. So re-industrialization, we've been talking about it for years. You could call it reshoring. You could call it onshoring from the coasts. Either way, it's repopulating, reinvesting in the states and the economies that made this country great. And over time, decades of population outmigration, global trade agreements that drove our industry base south of borders and across oceans. We never gave up on ourselves, and it's coming back. And there's several examples, including these incredible examples here. But right now, something's different about this moment. And I'd like to hear from each of the panelists, because they do have varied perspectives on what makes this shift, this change different than in the previous economic cycles. Let's start with Zach.
Yeah, I think, for those that may have seen the news yesterday, Anduril was fortunate enough to announce our Series H raise, $5 billion, $61 billion valuation. That size is built off of a thesis that started almost a decade ago. A recognition that the things that delivered the very freedoms that we have the opportunity to enjoy here in Ohio and the greater Midwest, are things that are guaranteed by ultimately a superior military that's able to deter those adversaries that seek to threaten our interests. And the very fabric of those things that were assuring that deterrence, unparalleled military superiority were being challenged and eroded, principally by a strategic competitor in China. And our bet was that the things that would ensure the United States strategic deterrence over the next several decades was not going to be built just on the back of those capabilities that had ensured it over the prior decades. It was fundamentally going to be about the age of AI, robotics, and automated systems. The ability to sense and sense-make, to understand what your adversary is doing in space and in time, the ability to put smart, intelligent, more affordable systems into those geographies that matter while your adversary is seeking to deny your ability to understand that time and space is going to be borne out by the capabilities and technologies that have been building in the commercial sector for the better part of several decades. Mark talked about some of those very things this morning. How we connect devices, how we connect sensors, how we ultimately build together an understanding of what's happening in a given geography that we care about is going to be delivered by a fundamentally different set of systems. And Anduril was built on that foundation, investing from day one in Lattice, our core operating system that powers all the robotic systems that we build. This bet has been doubled down on by our investors year over year, and we believe that while we're now just over 9 years in, that we're just getting started.
Great. Well, for me, I think all of this onshoring is happening again because there's a return to quality. I think a lot of the offshoring was done because you didn't need to produce quality products. They were much simpler. So you could have 30% of your products be bad and it would still be cheaper than making them in the US. But systems today are far more complicated, especially when you add autonomy, and I'm in the aviation space. You do not have any room for failure anymore. And that's why you're seeing things return to the United States, because that's where the quality comes from. That's where you're starting to see these complex systems are going to be produced better. And I, for one, am really excited to be in the aviation space and be seeing that, because we fly over schools. We fly over the rooftops of our homes. These drones cannot have any possibility of a failure rate. So we can't offshore them. And we're actually held to an FAA standard of airworthiness on our aircraft that ensures our certification that every component can even be verified on it. So I think a lot of things are going to start coming back now that quality is so core to what we're building today. And I think that's the real reason why you're going to see places like Ohio really thrive, because this is where the quality always was, and this is where it's just going to start again.
Andrew.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, I think there's like two big threats to national security. Obviously, our actual security that Zach touched on. But the second piece is going to be able to be self-sufficient. Can we actually build here again? Can we build the core products that we care about? Can we build the energy infrastructure? Can we build the AI infrastructure? Can we actually do these things? And, over the past multiple decades, we started to ship all that knowledge away from the country. And that's now going to become a huge issue. Google, Meta, Amazon, they can commit $1 trillion into making data centers, but the bottleneck isn't the capital. The bottleneck is ultimately the labor force, the work to actually build this infrastructure. That is what we are seeing day to day. And I think people are really starting to wake up to it. It was, not a top of mind for people, 10 years ago, but today it's becoming very top of mind. People want to have these things. They want it now. They want to be able to own and build this stuff themselves. And again, over the last 10 years, we've shipped a lot of that knowledge away. Now we are rebuilding that knowledge, not just with human workforce, but with the robotic workforce. We're finally hitting an inflection point with technology where AI can actually enable hardware to do the hard tasks that it wasn't able to do before. That allows us to now have a scaling effect, where not only can we now build these things with robotics, we can scale this very aggressively and ramp back up very quickly. And I think everyone's seeing this and everyone's coming together that recognize that this is really important, and this is the time to do it. We can't wait another 10 years, another 20 years. We have to do it now if we want to go back and restabilize.
Thank you for that. This next question's for Andrew and Zach. So you both scale companies in a lot of different places. You look at a lot of states, a lot of countries, a lot of different locations. So why Ohio, and what advantages are actually tangible when you're looking to build and scale fast?
Glad to leap first. I guess about a year and a half ago, this would have been a little over, so middle of 2024, as we looked out and saw the growing demand for robotic systems in U.S. and allied militaries, we knew that we ultimately needed to invest forward in advance of that demand ultimately being secured and delivered on contract, to invest in a set of facilities and infrastructure to be able to produce our products reliably at scale. And as we started that site selection process, we had, I think for anybody in the room that either has heard Palmer or Brian talk or heard me over the last year and a half in panels throughout Ohio, there's a sense of urgency about our work. And we knew that we needed to find a state and ultimately a site partner that was able to move at the speed with which we needed to deploy capital, which we needed to facilitize our core infrastructure to be able to produce product by the middle of this year. And it quickly became evident, not least of which because of then Lieutenant Governor's admonition to JP of he better not lose this deal, Ohio stepped up. Ohio brought forward a set of sites that could meet our timeline. Ohio brought forward a set of sites that could meet the capacity plans that we needed. Ohio brought forward an underlying set of intermodal infrastructure that could deliver partner vendor relationships, that could deliver finished goods out to customers. And last but not least, Ohio could bring educated, trained labor to the very skilled product trades that we need. So at the end of the day, Ohio separated itself because for the better part of the last decade and a half, due to the efforts of JP, former Governor Kasich, Mark, and others, Ohio's been investing in this future for some time. And it allowed us to make a pretty risk-controlled decision to build a manufacturing campus, 5 million square feet, ultimately employing over 4,000 folks right here in our backyard.
Yeah, for us, I would just start with Ohio is the only state that can do it. Then let me explain. So for a path, we have people that are technicians that literally build physical hardware, all the way up to staff research engineers that are focusing on deep learning, large model training, and then everything in the middle, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers, everything. And so when you actually look at the composite of path, you really need to go to a state that has massive diversity across the board, that has massive knowledge base, that has massive history in all of the areas and all of the fields. And when you really look at it across the board, there's not a lot of states that have it. We need to be able to have physical labor that's able to help build our systems. We need to be able to have technical trained labor that's able to advance AI. And staying in Columbus and being here, this really gives us the ability to have all of that. And that's why we are in Ohio. That's why we are going to stay in Ohio. And ultimately, that's why we believe it's the best state to really do this. Now, that's not being said that we don't also need talent from other states, talent that is not necessarily here organically, such as talent from Silicon Valley for very, very large model training. There are, couples of hundreds of people in the world that have actually done that at scale. And we need to be able to go get that talent and bring it here. But for the vast majority, you want to have a nucleus where you can have across-the-board diversity that satisfies all aspects of your business, and Ohio is where it's at.
A quick follow-up, and I think you've embedded some of these themes in your responses. Maybe call out one or two specific things that are easier here in Ohio than they are on the coasts.
Well, ultimately, if we're to be successful in meeting the expectations and now requirements of our U.S. and allied government partners, it's to reliably and durably deliver robotic systems at increasing scale. And the challenge associated with doing that is that the government's going to buy, and they just announced yesterday an award to us and a few other new entrants in the lower cost munitions space. The procurement of thousands, and I know by commercial standards that doesn't sound large, but by military standards it's quite large, thousands of missiles a year. The ability to do that affordably so that the government is getting a reliable system that nominally performs in the operational conditions in which they're going to deploy it, and allows us, as Mark articulated, to have a set of underlying economics that redeploy that capital based on that successful contract award and deployment, allow us to deploy that capital back into new product and back into the business. It is hard to gain those economics on the coast. There is an underlying cost of capital, an underlying cost of real estate, underlying cost of talent that is available at a good price with reliable quality right here in Ohio. So it's one of the things that, again, kind of clearly surfaced Ohio, not just Ohio, but South Central Ohio as the place that was the best fit for Arsenal One.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that Ohio has land, we have energy, we have water, we have talent, and we have aligned administration, right? Those 5 things fundamentally matter across the board. At Path for ourselves, the ability to have land, expand very quickly. We're at a 200,000 square foot facility. We're going to move over to a 500,000 square foot facility in the near future. We're going to be able to do that very quickly. We've got support from administration. Right now, we're getting a $15,000 basically incentive when we bring people from other states here. That is really meaningful for relocation. We have a ton of land. When we go to the coast and they're making $500,000 a year, they're still living in an apartment. If you make $500,000 a year here, you are buying a neighborhood. And so it's meaningful. Like, people want better lives. They want to have kids. They want to enjoy their future. And this is the place to really be able to do it. And we see it firsthand. That's the way we can bring people from Tesla here so easily, is because they want a different life. They want to be able to have something that they can't get there. And we have that to offer here.
They're not all going to Florida and Tennessee and Denver. That's the value proposition, and it's great to see it lived and expressed by people who have to compete in the global market and capitalize on that value proposition. So for this next question's for Beth and Andrew. One of the themes of the session is closing the hardware-software gap. What does that actually mean inside a factory or industrial environment? Let's start with Beth.
So I am an embedded software developer. So for my whole life, I've loved robotics, and I specifically write code for microcontrollers. So people say I'm like Frankenstein. I love having things come to life. And it's been very difficult in the past 10 years to raise funds when you do have a hardware element to your business. And it's kind of shocking to me because I always felt like you could sit in between these two incredible worlds and actually have things, come to life and do something for you. And what's interesting is Ohio has actually brought a lot of that hardware and manufacturing backbone that has been, you don't see on the coasts, because they are only chasing where the money goes, and the money has only been going towards software. But it hasn't been here. Here we've been able to find people that build, people that love to create things. I talk about Dayton a lot. I'm a big proponent of Dayton. My children go to school here. They learn about the Wright brothers in kindergarten. Like, there is nowhere else where things about building things.
They're not from North Carolina.
They are not. They're absolutely not. But the inventions that were created here in this state are so taught that physical element of building with your hands runs deep here. So we've been able to create this business and build our drones here because we've been able to find talent that have feet in both worlds. And even when you find software people, they want to try the hardware thing. They want to see what it takes to build. And that is really something that we have not been able to find in terms of talent. When you look at people on the coasts, we have people in Seattle that work for us remotely, and it's all software. This is where you find the people that are willing to learn and willing to try and have, their heritage of my grandfather worked building cars. My, dad used to work at Wright Pat. That really transcends, and that's what makes Ohio really special.
Yeah, on the bridging the gap piece, I do think classically there's like, are you a software company or are you a hardware company? It's like, no, that's not how you should think about this at all. You are a company that builds a product at the end of the day, and every single piece matters. And for a long, long time, these two disciplines were really bifurcated. And you'd have companies that they make hardware, and you have companies that make software. Again, I think over the last 5 to 10 years, you've seen a massive change there, where you're embedding software into hardware at a very early stage. You are working with it, both groups hand in hand, and you have to continue to do that. I mean, we believe very, very much that hardware enabled by AI is going to be the future. And I think there's a growing movement around that. And people in academic settings are starting to have courses and be taught that at an early stage as well. And again, it's not just somebody that is trained to work on hardware and somebody that's trained to work on software. We're seeing this both, where people are more focused on hardware are still getting 40% software. More people that focus on software are getting 40% hardware at this point. So having a mix ability to go in between both is really critical. And again, it starts at the universities, in my opinion, and we're seeing a lot of that.
This one's for the group. Cutting through the hype and all the theater around AI, what industrial applications are delivering right now in your business, or even that you're aware of in your sector? Let's start with Zach.
Well, maybe just to take the question that I wasn't asked, yeah, and then I'll answer your question. Yeah, I think it starts with the intersection of software and hardware. The defense sector has, for those in the room that are living and breathing it or have over their lifetimes, it is a unique sector, especially for those that are selling into the federal government, where you're building something that is defined by an end user requirement. You're building it in a special purpose-built facility. You're building hardware and software bespoke to that particular need. You're delivering it once, and then it is likely never touched again. And the challenge that we confront, both domestically and as we think about protecting U.S. interests abroad, is that the adversary gets a vote. They don't work in decades. They work in years, if not months. And we need a set of underlying composable systems that allow us to reflexively respond to an adversary that is seeking to deny us the thing that we want to protect. And it is fundamentally software that enables our hardware systems to be adaptive. Just think about those who has, be it Tesla or some other self-driving vehicle, the amount of progress made over the last 18 to 24 months in the fidelity and capability of full self-driving is phenomenal. And imagine, you bought that car 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You're getting modernization through the underlying software ecosystem that has been built into your vehicle. Why should that not be available more generally? And so, to Andy's point, the very fabric of software-defined hardware products allows us to recompose and compose solutions built on that underlying investment that we made from day one in the core operating system of the product. That's also true of how we produce. How do we produce a high volume of many things? It gets down to having an underlying operating system that allows us to produce as many common things as commonly as possible across systems. So as we think about embedding software in our production facilities, it's not just about the software and the product, it's about the software that allows us to learn across the production systems of each product and improve that production system over time. So that as we produce a fighter aircraft coming off the line, what those technicians learn about the operating tools, the systems that are ultimately designing, integrating, and delivering integrated product off the back end of the line, also feed into the underlying systems that are doing inventory management, instruction updates and modifications, and ultimately improved warehouse efficiency to deliver the tools, the subcomponents, and supplies to the station when they're needed to move that product down the line. It's all built on the top of Arsenal operating system. So we will become more efficient at producing because we're fundamentally laying in underneath our production facility an operating system that will enable us to scale it efficiently as we get demand for a product that we're not even designing yet.
In terms of the AI that we're building, we use the term physical AI now for what we're doing. And I always use this expression that AI will tell you what to do, autonomy will do it for you. So AI alone is the first phase. The second phase is how do you take the knowledge that AI is telling you and have hardware actually make it happen. And that's the software, that's what we're developing in-house. And for everybody here who works in AI, the AI is only as good as the data that's coming in. And simulated data is nothing like real-world data. And that's why when we fly our aircraft, we are trying to add as much as we can to get as much data as we can to be able to make our AI so great that the aircraft can eventually operate completely on its own without anybody. Right now, we still have remote air traffic controllers that watch it, but eventually it's going to be flying around doing its own thing. You're not even going, it's going to make its own decisions. And that's where you're really going to see that shift. AI alone, it's great. We all use it. We love ChatGPT, but eventually you need to get to the point where that thing is doing it for you. So that's where we're trying to move our hardware.
What was the question?
The question was.
Yeah.
Question was.
It was about,
Before we got a little bit of a detour, but a very constructive detour by Zach, programmed in by AI. It's very nice.
You're welcome.
Real-world application that's making a difference with AI that either you're using or that you've observed in your sector.
Okay, cool. Well, Path, so we can just talk about Path for a second. So real-world application for us is like our main focus and core product that we deliver is on welding. So we would say that is working by AI. It's not been an overnight journey, though. It's been 8 years of data collection, and it comes with a lot. So, but in manufacturing, we feel like welding is a solved now problem through our machine learning. But we're also seeing a lot of great applications in the robotic space that are coming closely behind that. So in general dexterous assembly, kind of like the holy grail of robotics, there's a lot of groups that are coming onto the space now. And they're showing incredible trajectories and advancements of what is happening there. There's a group called Generalist AI. I was just out there yesterday actually meeting with them, doing an amazing work with the ability to be able to do general tasks such as open water bottles, be able to fold laundry, be able to do zip ties, be able to package the pieces. And they're starting to move into longer time horizons, meaning they're starting with a task that only takes 10 seconds, and they're moving into tasks that maybe take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, tasks that have 100 sub-steps into it. And so we're just seeing the advancements, I would say, at this point rather rapidly. And a lot of it is coming from people focusing on data as a first-class citizen, which again hasn't notoriously been where people have really been focusing over the last 10 years. But with everyone focusing much more on getting data, getting high-quality data, it has to be real-world data for sure, and doing it at massive scale at this point. We're going to start to see a lot of tasks in the labor space start to be augmented or be able to be much more efficient through hardware-enabled AI.
I'll answer your question now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So JP's had the maybe good fortune, I don't know, up for him to say, to meet our Chief Operating Officer, Matt Grimm. In the early days of the company, one of the first products we built was an autonomous sentry tower. The sentry tower is deployed along the U.S. southern and northern borders in support of our CBP agents. It's also deployed along the perimeters of U.S. military installations across the United States and overseas. Its fundamental task is to detect objects that might be of interest, classify those objects, alert someone of an object that they should care about, and then ultimately help them make decisions as to whether or not they should take further action. Historically, if you could still go to a U.S. military installation in Virginia, in Texas, here in Ohio, and you would find a security sector agent that is sitting behind a camera, steering it with a joystick, using his or her 2 eyeballs to try to determine what that object is, whether they should care about it, is it moving toward or away from our installation, and then they get on a phone and they call their friend Johnny and they ask Johnny if he can go out and get in a truck and go look at it. Today, thanks to Matt Grimm, who spent hours, if not days, at our test facility in Southern California back in 2017, moving around the wide expanse and allowing our perception models to train on him to classify him as a human and not a cow or a dog or some other biped. These models now do the work of several agents that were previously charged to look through these cameras and determine whether or not they could understand what an object was, whether it was something they should care about, and then ultimately what they should do about it. And these models now deploy not just on our tower, they deploy on our unmanned aerial systems, they're deployed on our surface and subsurface underwater vehicles. And each deployment of that sensor aligning against that model makes that model better. That model's getting smarter, it's getting more efficient at classifying that object, it's getting more efficient at recommending decisions about what someone should do about that object. And that's all a function of AI enabling automated workflows to ultimately allow humans to render what they're uniquely capable of doing, judgment against a decision.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you all. Next question got to do with talent. You all brought up talent. JobsOhio did a market assessment that showed we're going to have a gap. Ohio, now that it has reemerged as a industrial and economic leader, a gap of in-demand talent through early to mid the next decade of between 500,000 and 600,000 individuals. A gap. Significant gap. For each panelist specifically, what types of talent are most in demand for you? And which domains are you having the most challenges attracting or hiring? Let's start out with Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, so talent across the board, we already kind of hit on this. We need, basically every type of job you can imagine, getting from technicians to ML researchers. The hardest gap for sure for us right now would be senior research scientists in AI and ML. That is by far the largest gap. So if you have solutions for that, I'm here for it. We desperately need help continuing to grow that population, being able to recruit more from the coast. That is a job that is definitely much more concentrated on the coast at this point in time. As we, in like great groups like Drive Capital and the Ohio Fund, continue to invest in AI companies in this space, and I know they're planning to invest heavily, we can continue to build this nucleus around additional ventures that are focused on AI and bringing more and more talent here. But we got to do it. We definitely have a missing gap on that senior side. People that have really been in the trenches, people that have really seen it firsthand, people that have deployed at scale, people that were working on ChatGPT-3, people that were working on Claude and Gemini. And so for us, that is one of the largest gaps that we see today, is being able to pull that specific talent and create a real hub for that talent here. And that's something that we obviously want to work with the state on, of like, how do we make that something that we can solve together?
Yeah, and to expand on that too, I mean, there's a shortage of them even on the coast. Anywhere you are, that senior level is a problem, but it's even more so here. But in our world, we have both sides of the spectrum. We absolutely need those senior data scientist people that that you're looking for too. But we also want people that want to work in assembly lines and actually build aircraft forever. And that is also something that a lot of the younger talent have shied away from. They've chosen the 4-year degree. They're expecting to come out and get a very high-paying, expensive, wonderful job, and a lot of those jobs aren't there. So it's we're losing a lot of those people, those younger people that were going into those physical trades. So we are on like both sides of that, trying to find that kind of talent. So we've actually focused as a company on a lot of training to overcome that, because the way you make a data scientist or the way you make somebody want to build things is to teach them. So we are trying to work with local universities and even work with trade schools to try to teach them, yeah, you can work on HVAC, but you could also build aircraft. So these are it's on both extremes for us of where we're trying to find talent. But as long as you're looking for people that are willing to learn, Ohio is the place. Ohio has the most universities of any state. The people here want to learn. They want to try new things. They're not very, I come from New York. A lot of people are doing what their parents did and going into banking because their dad was in banking and they want to afford a house. And here, people are really, we've found incredible people coming from all walks of life that want to just try their hand at something new. And as long as you're willing to teach them, we've had incredible success finding talent in the rarest of places.
I heard Andy say earlier you can buy neighborhoods in Ohio, so it's, we're on our way. Well, one, for everyone in the room, I'll point you to table 24. Anduril's fortunate to have brought on board, a former colleague of JP, Christy Klaus, to lead our talent and workforce work, not just here in Ohio, but across a number of our production locations. So many of you probably know Christy, probably know her better than I.
It's a great hire.
We're fortunate to have her on the team, and then also Kristen Easterday, who came to us from Columbus Port Authority, who leads external affairs for us. They're our literal personal front door to Ohio's 4-year, 2-year, and technical colleges and centers. As we think about the prospect of hiring either Ohioans today or future Ohioans into the Arsenal campus, it will rely on ultimately forming partnerships with the state's higher education institutions to generate the trained workforce necessary to fulfill the jobs that we're ultimately going to be hiring for. 85% of these 4,000, give or take, are going to be production technicians. So we'll also be down in your local high schools. We've been fortunate in Pickaway to already spend time in Taze Valley and Circleville, among others, educating them on our products, the types of skills and trades necessary to ultimately be employed one day in their backyard at Arsenal One. That's an exciting opportunity for us on the one hand, where we have high-touch labor-oriented production on the one hand. On the other, we think a lot about how we enable educated humans to control more and more robotic systems, whether that is in the battle space or whether that is on the production floor. And many of the things that Andy and the team at Path are doing are fundamentally reimagining where we have labor shortages, and we feel this immensely in our shipbuilding business. It has historically nationwide, on the coasts, in the South, and in the upper Midwest, faced shortages in qualified welders, pipe fitters, electricians. And we as a nation are starting to overcome that because we are finding the right trained individuals that are informing and ultimately employing these robotic welding cells to be able to enable our shipbuilding capacity that we've long under-delivered on. So it's the combination of these two things that are going to animate what we continue to do here in Ohio and elsewhere.
Well, what a great place to end the panel on talent, the most important resource and what Ohio has in abundance. Keep in mind, for those of you that are from outside of Ohio, come on down, come on over, come on up. For those of you that are here and you're looking to hire people from outside the state, Andrew referenced this JobsOhio relocation incentive. I'd encourage you to take advantage of that. It's $15,000 per person. You re-domicile outside of the state into the state if they're in one of those 71 key critical workforce categories, up to $250,000 per company. It's there, it's real. And you should take advantage of it. It brings more people, removes the challenge of poaching as we start to grow and build our workforce. But again, Chris, thank you very much for this opportunity. And to our panelists, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with this group. Time to get back to work. Thank you all.